Okay, so where do we even start? Yeah, so it's been a crazy couple of days for Nottingham Forest, and when I say where do we start, I'm going to offer a solution, a timetable of what kind of happened, a timeline, sorry, should I say, of what's happened at Nottingham Forest. Now, we'll start with the most recent news, which of course is that Nottingham Forest and Nuno Espirito Santo, the relationship between the ownership and the manager is probably as distant as it has ever been. And that is concerning, incredibly concerning, because we've seen this before where Evangelos Marinakis has fallen out with the manager before. Of course, Steve Cooper, the most notable and most recent one. But this is concerning. Forest are on the verge of their first season in Europe, and potentially I wouldn't even say potentially, they've got their best and most equipped squad they've had since being back in the Premier League, and probably of this entire century. And now, after one game week, the manager could be leaving. This is incredible. I mean, this is like unprecedented stuff. This is crazy. Now, let's run through, though, why this situation has now unfolded and what we can kind of expect. So, first of all, Nuno signed a new contract. He signed a new longer-term contract, improved terms. Him and Evangelos Marinakis were pictured smiling, taking the contract, taking pictures with the contract being signed, and all looked very good. Edu comes in as the head of global football for Nottingham Forest, Olympiacos, and Rio Ave just a week or 2 weeks later. Now, the transfer window comes about. Of course, Igor Jesus, Jair Cunha, and others coming in a little bit earlier, but not necessarily as early as Nuno would have wanted, halfway through pre-season due to the Club World Cup. And now we've signed James McAtee, Arnau Calamuendo, Amari Hutchinson and Douglas Luiz. Of course, they've all come after or they weren't registered for the first game week. Of course, Luiz, Hutchinson, Calamuendo before the game, but Douglas Luiz after. Of course, now though, the concern for Nuno was that he didn't think that the signings had been made early enough. He said to Sky Sports in an interview just last week that he was frustrated and that the squad wasn't well equipped enough for the season. And of course, to an extent, when the interview was made, Hutchinson hadn't signed, McAtee hadn't signed, Luiz hadn't signed, Calamuendo hadn't signed. So of course, you would agree the squad wasn't ready. And yes, business should have been done earlier. But why wasn't it? I think we should pick apart the timeline a little bit. Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace, as well as Lyon, battled it out in the Court for the Arbitration of Sport, which was due to MCO or multi-club ownership rulings, which saw Crystal Palace downgraded from the Europa League to the Conference League. Now, I'm not going to go on a tangent about that because the book's closed and that is the chapter done. Whether Palace fans like it or not, or Forest fans like it or not, the situation is done. And we can't change anything as fans. And actually, I think that as fans of non-Big Six clubs, we should be sticking together, because these exact rules, alongside PSR rules and other indications of what modern football is becoming in terms of the laws, is what our club should be sticking together and fighting against. So infighting within the other 14, it shouldn't be happening for me. But anyway, the point being made is that Nuno was frustrated at the timing of signings, and also now it's been revealed that Edu blocked the deal for Amon Traore to Nottingham Forest, which of course most fans, I was the same, would have wanted it at the time. Since then, though, Forest have brought in Dan Ndoye, Calamuendo and other players as well, and there's still more to come. So naturally, the idea of needing an Amon Traore didn't really do anything for me after that. And probably the same for other fans. But Nuno was really set on it. Edu blocked it, and there's a tension created there. Nuno is someone that is deeply rooted in his principles and his values. So of course, when someone comes along and tells him how to do his thing, it's not going to be very well received. But he is a head coach. That's his role. And unfortunately for him, that is his limitation. While he would like to be involved with transfers and have a big say, that's Edu. Edu's now coming in to do that. He worked seamlessly with Arteta at Arsenal, it seemed. But now, of course, coming into Forest, where the expectations are different, the culture's different, and the club is at a very different trajectory to Arsenal, things are very different. And he's coming in to make an impact. And having a sudden impact, of course, when things don't go right or things aren't what the manager Nuno wants, there's going to be a tension there. And there is certainly a rift. Nuno's already said it in a press conference. He said, and quite remarkably said, his relationship with Evangelos Marinakis is not as close, and that the relationship has changed. Exact quotes. That is baffling. And while I do think that the situation should have been dealt with professionally in private, and I think it would have been better as adults and people within the sport who know just how quickly the media and people that aren't a fan of Forest and don't want the best for the club are going to jump on this, it should have been done in private. But of course, the night before all this came out, it was aired by Matteo Moretto, the Italian journalist, who, credit to him, despite a lot of, including me, our concerns for his reports, he was correct. And he said that the club were considering sacking Nuno. Now, any manager that hears that in the media is going to be so frustrated. So you can see why Nuno's angry. Reports are saying that the club are potentially going to sack him are coming out. And he's not even said anything about this. If he had made the press conference before this and then Forest had said that, then there's a fairness there. But this has all been said before Nuno even came to the press conference. And as you can imagine, early morning, Nuno's emotional. He's come into the press conference and he's completely poured unleaded fuel all over the fire. And the situation is now, it's in jeopardy, to say quite nicely. Nottingham Forest and Nuno Espirito Santo, that relationship is now distant. And of course, Nuno says he is just going to turn up and do his job, but there's disagreements and things aren't going quite the way it should. Now, this can go one of two ways, I would say. Either Nuno is sacked and the situation is over, the noise is cut, and as much as it will be very controversial and there will be a lot of noise around it, Forest look to get someone else in and start afresh. Or, and this is my preferred method, diplomacy prevails. Both parties, Edu and Marinakis and Nuno, they speak when emotions aren't quite as high, perhaps after the Crystal Palace game. And let's hope Forest win, by the way, because if not, then the situation just gets plunged into even more deeper areas that it doesn't need to go to. So we just need a diplomatic end to this. As fans, we're going to be here no matter what. Owners, players, managers, they come and go. But fans will always be in the middle. And Forest fans have had to deal with a lot in the last couple of years from other fan bases and also internally. I just don't think we need any more noise. The situation's frustrating. The club actually made very good signings, and I do believe that the CAS decision to upgrade Forest to the Europa League had a huge impact on it. More prize money, of course, means that they have more PSR leverage, and therefore, yes, they are going to go and sign players and make more ambitious moves because they've got the money to. And I can also see the side of Nuno as someone who is just a manager and just wants to get the job done, and he's very stubborn in that kind of mindset, which I respect because it's got Forest to Europe. So there's two sides that want what's best for the club, but unfortunately, of course, they are going down different paths about how they do that. So at the moment, it's all looking very shaky. And to be honest, my opinion on the situation is that, yes, I'd rather option 2. It gets resolved. I don't think that the situation will ever be as good as it was in terms of the relationship between the owner and Nuno, because, they're both very successful people. Marinakis is a successful businessman. Nuno, a very successful, underrated footballing manager who's achieved a lot with the clubs he's been with. And I think that both have very big egos. So, of course, and Edu as well included. So, of course, to kind of have that clash, it's tough to see it repairing, but you can hope that it is. So, where do we go from here? Some people are saying that Ange Postecoglou's being lined up for the Forest job. I really hope not. I'm going to not give time and airtime to candidates that are going to replace Nuno because I think it's disrespectful personally. And the situation should just be focusing on repairing it. However, what will happen in the next week is going to be incredible. And could Nuno be in the dugout on Sunday? We really don't know. But the situation really is remarkable. I just hope that we don't give other fans, and as I said earlier, people with bad intentions, the kind of fuel and the energy to create bad news about Forest and to take us down. Because, of course, after such a good window like we've had, signing someone like Douglas Luiz, who, if you got the Aston Villa form, would be a fantastic midfielder, one of the best in the Premier League potentially. And I mean that, if we recovered that form. to sign the players Forest have signed with the profiles they've signed them at is a really positive thing. So for this to all be thrown up into the air is just, I would say, typical Forest, but it's also so disappointing because we don't really deserve that as Forest fans. So hopefully we can get a quick resolution and things can go better and things can be sorted, but can I see it at the moment? I'm really not sure it will happen, but we'll have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, Crystal Palace on Sunday, massive game. Make sure you're here for that because I'm doing a watch-along live from 1:30pm UK time, or if you're in Australia, 10:30pm. So looking forward to seeing you there Sunday. Hopefully that Nuno is still in the dugout. I'm still very firmly behind Nuno, but I do think that there needs to be some resolution and some compromise here. That's the big thing that's needed. So see you Sunday. What a week for Nottingham Forest. Take care.